So we now move on to initial coin offerings. What are ICOs and why should we be involved?
Yes, it's pretty much cloned from initial price offerings for shares. So they have taken essentially the model, but unlike IPOs where there's an investment bank usually involved, generating documents, due diligence, etc. ICOs are far less onerous. There's a bit of PR, there's a bit of creating a bit of hype, there's a white paper typically written up, which is your, who you are and what you're all about. In other words, it's an information document and why people should care, why they should consider you worthwhile. You have to negotiate with exchanges to list your coin initially, particularly when you're small and new. Exchanges make money out of people who are going to trade. So if you aren't proliferating your coin, it's not going to be broadly spread enough, there's not going to be enough interest, the exchange just has extra admin and not a whole bunch of revenue. So you have to get a lot of parties involved in supporting you, and you need a justification to exist. So do your research, is always the case, and is there a going concern?
How do I analyse the opportunity of an ICO?
It's tough. It's research. Most of the people doing ICOs are quite obtainable directly. Certainly if I'm putting in money, I would want to talk to someone in the steering management team. If not the CEO, certainly within the investment committee or the chief technology officer to find out, what are they doing that is different. Watch out for looky-likey clones that are just largely regurgitating a model that someone else has done and it's the same as the other. And see if there's a real business also behind it. It is kind of like a share. Are these people investable?
So we're seeing ICOs raising hundreds of millions of dollars, but with no actual product. What's your opinion of this?
There is possibly a mania and a hype, and there's probably overvaluations in there. And there will be certain businesses that'll be a triumph of marketing over actual technology and deliverability on a major tangible raison d'etre, as I've called it, in other words, reason for existence, and people should be very cautious of that. And in the same way as we had in the .com, there will be unicorns and there will be overvalued entities as well.
Is there any opinion or advice that you have for our viewers on how to approach initial ICOs? Should everything or most just be taken as there's been quite a strong market?
Yeah, that's a bit of the big idiot's philosophy. In other words, don't think too much, just buy everything, it's going to fly anyway. Even the dead fish will float upwards when the tide rises. But there'll also be a nasty smell to go with that, and you want to avoid that. So I think there's never a reason to make lazy decisions. Rather make a few very select hand-picked ones and have concentrated wealth in those than just have a scattergun approach. There's some value in diversification, which can be a bit lucky, but have 3 or 4 good ideas that you've researched really well, and take the businesses that are properly known. The rest is just a bit of a punt, and you've got to, if you don't really have knowledge, and look for existing operators that have tech experience and have done things with big corporations in the tech sphere, and are really likely to be quite passionate and in the industry and have a real unique USP that they bringing that looks like they'll own a niche. I don't think there's going to be one coin that's going to own all aspects. Look for ones that will dominate a niche. Even Amazon went after books, and said they didn't call themselves a bookstore. That was smart because they knew where they went, but they totally dominated books, and then they leveraged into other aspects in there. So while they're now seen as quite a broad retailer of everything, while they were building out their logistics, they owned one thing small. Be a monopolist. Let them spot the one that is going to be a monopolist in a segment, because that's going to give them a lot of power to then lever into other areas if they choose to do that.
I completely forgot that Amazon started in books. I completely forgot. Yeah. We use Amazon for everything now. I just ordered some lights from us. I completely forgot. Can an investor profit from ICOs?
I think you can, and I think many have. particularly in this boom and growth phase. Look for the bigger ICOs with the bigger businesses, with real developers, with a real reason to exist. That is certainly going to do well. Unfortunately, with those ICOs, it's often hard to get in the early rounds unless you're connected. So certainly join forums, groups where there's information being discussed. I'm lucky to have a community of altcoin elite specialists and investors and people that actually do the PR and incubate for crypto ICOs. So I have an in there, but those can be developed to a certain degree by someone who's out there. So if you prioritize it, start making contacts by virtue of probably participating in forums.
So if I wanted to invest in ICOs or cryptocurrencies, what would be your advice to me or to our viewers?
Have a methodology. Think about the plan and write it down. The minute you put pen to paper, you start empowering it, and it also forces new thought processes. So it's kind of like writing goals down. They become 10 times more powerful once you write them down. What am I going to do? And then you say, okay, what am I prepared to lose? And divide it up into those thirds, as I mentioned. So hard hodl, soft hodl, speculated pot, how much into ICOs, how much. Often it's nice to trade the majors, but be more active. So that goes into that final third that goes into ICOs as well. So you can allocate. So have an idea how you intend to allocate your money and look to replicate an index. I think there will be some indexes coming in, but look to replicate a weighted index. In other words, have more of the majors than the small. If you are disproportionately heavy in a really small speculative crypto, the whole crypto realm could go up, but you've chosen badly. You could miss the whole party, and because of lack of liquidity, you could get really caned on the way out. So the valuation isn't what your current price is. It's what you could afford to get out at if you had to get out at a hurry. And that's what many people forget. And in the same way as a house, your house isn't worth what it is at the top of the boom. It's when you're trying to sell it and everyone else is trying to sell post the crash and you've had your job taken away from you. That's what you end up getting for it. So particularly on light liquidity elements. Watch liquidity. It's a trap.